What is going on, guys, and welcome back to more Witch on the Holy Night. I remember in one of the comments I got on one of my last videos on this, somebody said I should be reading the archive, or at least reading the archive for Chapter 1, because there's actually something important here that I need to read. I didn't even know what the archive was until I looked at it, and apparently it's it's not really side content, but, well, side content, it's sort of like additional... like kind of an extra story, but it is kind of important to the chapters. So I guess that being said, I should read it. I believe this one is for chapters 1, it says chapter 1.5, so I guess we're going to read some of these. I have no idea what is going on in any of these chapters, by the way. I don't know what these are about. Morning in the city moved deceptively fast. People all over were up and about, and to the point that you might think that the morning didn't exist at all. Sojiro woke to a still unfamiliar groan, like rolling rocks. Oh, this is Sojiro's point of view. Okay. It was probably his neighbor, Yoshida, heading out on his motorbike. The line between day and night was blurred here. Machines were synonymous with sleeplessness. Unbelievable. The sun isn't even up yet. Where could he be going? Slowly, he lifted himself out of bed. He almost started to survey the area out of habit, but realized there was no need and headed toward the washroom. There, he drew a cup of water from the faucet and leisurely quenched his thirst. Considering he had only drunk well water until just recently, he liked the convenience. It was right to like it. Koga had taught him that civilization was the pursuit of sophistication and optimization. The effort required to meet basic needs was dropping, even as the complexity of human life increased, and it was his duty to adapt to that life as quickly as possible. Koga was a distant relative of Sojiro's father, and had done a lot for Sojiro despite the fact that they were practically strangers. He was the one that had acquired the lease on this apartment and filed the paperwork to enroll Sojiro in school. The only thing Sojiro had to take care of himself were simple clerical matters with the local government to finalize his move. Though he wasn't very good with formalities, he kept his goal in sight and tried his best, and before he knew it, everything was in order. The bureaucracy may seem strict, but it's actually pretty sloppy. That was the first lesson he learned about life in the city. It had already been 2 weeks since he left the countryside. Although he was still riddled with anxiety at the idea of living alone, he was sure he could handle anything if he put his mind to it. It wasn't like he didn't speak the language, and just as Koga said, when it came to the purely practical side of life, the rules of the city were very logical. So I guess this is all being told, like this is sort of going into Sojiro's backstory a little bit, or somewhat. The path was hard, yet surprisingly easy to walk on. He was jogging in the park to kill time until work. The way he saw it, even this sort of exercise has important lessons. Or held important lessons. Every single person that passed by was a new experience. The old man that waved and greeted him. The 20-something youth that walked with his head down. The girl sitting on a bench feeding the birds. He wouldn't give those moments up for anything. Since he was not yet used to the city, he had to work to grasp its rules. Sometimes complicated and sometimes simple. Sometimes meaningful and sometimes not. Compared to life in the mountains where the only worry was nature, life here had too many choices. Honestly, it was almost poisonous. Everything that happened made him uneasy. But even in this city where so many things made no sense, there were rules that he could admire from the bottom of his heart. For example, the rule that you can get almost anything you needed as long as you had money. That alone was enough to make him think that life in the city might not be so bad. I really like the scenery and everything, it looks really nice. Well, it's not quite that simple. Money itself is only a symbol, it's not what's really important. In the end, it's no different from favor coupons. I mean, it's not like you can eat a 10,000 yen bill, yeah? And it can't buy you happiness either, if you say so. Hey, don't screw with me, I'm going to cry. I don't want to hear that kind of money is everything talk from a guy washing dishes for 4,000 yen a day. Sorry, I just think the monetary system is really amazing, that's all. I never realized how limited bartering was. More importantly, Hosuke, I think it's like Hosuke? 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 I'm just gonna say Hosuke. Hosuke, if you keep messing around, the plates will fall. Huh? What do you... Whoa! That was close! If I break anything else, it'll be my neck! Thanks for the heads up. Anyway, what did you want to talk about? Something to do with money? That's right. I've really started to realize just how important money is, and that it's better to have a lot of it, so I wanted to work some more if I can. What? Really? You're already working like a machine. And what did I just say? Money doesn't make the world go round. That would be love. But putting that aside, doesn't that water bother you? I can't imagine anything worse than washing dishes in the winter. Oh, sure, it's cold, but I can endure this much. It's not as painful as the water in the mountain. Don't compare it to ice water, you feral bastard. Really though, you're surprisingly adaptable. Or maybe you're just tenacious? You couldn't even work the register when you got here, but in just 4 days you've practically become this stingy restaurant slave. I guess that's what money does to people. Capitalism sure is amazing. Shut up, moron! If you got a problem, then quit already. I'm not paying you to sit around with your thumb up your ass. An outburst of profanity flew across the room, followed closely by a pair of cooking chopsticks. The manager of this laid-back Chinese restaurant willing to employ minors was a burly man with a legendary temper. So this is what they call Spartan, huh? Sojiro whistled in admiration. See? You got scolded. That's why you should focus on your work. Shut up! People our age are supposed to be rebellious. Guy kinda looks like Shiro if Shiro had like longer hair. Well, whatever. Let's change the subject. Do you like going out at night? Maybe riding your bike around? Huh? It's usually night by the time I leave work, but I'm not really interested in evening strolls or outings. Why? Right, you wouldn't know since you've just moved here. This town is actually kind of dangerous. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like it's full of hooligans or anything. It's just that every year, maybe 10 or so people are killed by a slasher. The hash-slinging slasher. What's a slasher? Oh my god. You don't even know that? How should I put it? It's nothing like a purse snatcher, really. It's more like how samurai used to cut down people on the street to test their weapons, I guess. The victims usually turn up in the residential district near the forest. Anyway, don't go out at night unless you absolutely have to. The park in Misaki Hills is an infamous hotspot of weirdness. Some people even say the slasher is a slit-mouthed woman. A slit-mouthed woman. It's a ghost story about a woman whose mouth is split from ear to ear. It's sort of old-fashioned now, but it used to be really popular. If I remember right, she ambushes people in the street in the dead of night and asks them if they think she's pretty. But whether they say yes or no, she chases them home and kills them. A woman's passion sure is terrifying, huh? It's like something out of an American comic book. Wait, isn't that seriously scary? She actually follows you all the way home? Yeah, she probably crawls right in through the window, rustling just like a cockroach. Yeah! Hey, shitty brat! That world is forbidden in the kitchen. Die! The manager slammed his frying pan into the back of Hosuke's head. Once again, Sojiro was struck with admiration. This town really was dangerous. Just not in the way that he thought it might be. Jeez, he's gonna kill me! Isn't that worse than what I said? I mean, this is just a restaurant for God's sake, not that you know it from the food. Is your head okay, Hosuke? Huh? Oh yeah, no need to worry, I'm known for my toughness, and that goes double for my head. Anyway, you really should avoid dark places at night. You've got a sucker's face. Thanks for the advice. By the way, that thing you mentioned about there being 10 victims a year, is that a lot? Dunno, it's not a little, sure, but there are other places with more. But what sets our slasher apart is that nobody's been able to find him yet. Hosuke let out a gleeful cackle. He's probably only trying to take the edge off of Unama's story, but of course, that noble intention was lost on Sojiro. His friendly warning had no effect. In the end, Sojiro thought it was just another joke he didn't understand. Uh-oh. Later, on the way home, Sojiro was walking through the dimly lit, deserted residential district when suddenly, he turned his head toward an impossible noise. Oh shit, somebody got killed. Ow! Something hit him in the head and thudded to the ground beneath his feet. He furrowed his brow. Apparently a starling had smashed into the nearby telephone pole, stunned itself, and then tumbled onto him as it fell. After preening itself in the street for a moment, it flew away in panic. The whole event was almost surreal. He had never experienced anything like it in his entire life. It was way beyond his common sense. Anybody else would have probably seen it as an ill omen or an inauspicious event, but Sojiro merely nodded and went back to walking home. Well, nothing to see here. Yes. Even if it was the first time it had happened to him, he was sure it must happen all the time in the city. Oh hey, are we going to Aoko now? I guess we're going to Aoko's perspective again. I'm home! Hey, Alice, you here? I picked up some senbei from Isaiah on the way back from the church. Let's eat them together. A lively voice echoed through the orange-tinged lobby. It was past 5 o'clock, and Aoko, still in her school uniform, was just now getting home. Normally, she returned earlier, but she had been tied up with miscellaneous duties from the student council, as well as monthly negotiations with the church. Welcome back. I take it everything went well today? A voice greeted her from the second floor. In contrast to Aoko's energy, the girl making her way downstairs was the very embodiment of tranquility. They had some complaints, but other than that, it went off without a hitch. They're going to look the other way again and let us handle our own problems. That's what you wanted, right? Yes, not that I'm opposed to receiving help, mind you, but these people are snakes. Better if they only handle the cleanup like usual. Yeah, because I remember from the Nasu verse, church is usually the one. People from the church usually handle the cleanups of witches or mages or whatever if something happens, or hunt vampires. Agreed. After all, we can't focus on our work if we have to watch our backs at the same time. Well, I can. You simply lack the required level of composure. Huh. Thump, thump, thump. Alice gracefully descended the stairs into the lobby. On the way, she shot a conspicuous glance toward the skylight, drawing Aoko's attention. The glass is clouded over, huh? Indeed, but we can talk about that after today's assignment. Speaking of which, how are you feeling, Aoko? You can rest first if you're tired. Huh? What's with the concern all of a sudden? It's creepy, and it's not like there's anything bothering me. It was just a normal day. Do I really look that bad? Indeed, today has been relatively smooth sailing. On the surface, her peaceful school life seemed the same as ever. Sure, if she really mulled over it, there had been incidents here and there that subtly aggravated her headache. But in the end, even though she was a little worn out mentally, focusing on it was even more exhausting, so she decided not to think about it. Stop. I can't let that stuff get to me even at home. Today's assignment was wish, right? Elementary suggestion? No problem. Let's get started. I don't know why, but I've got a good feeling about today. In other words, she was ready to work off some stress. Pumping herself up, Aoko headed to the second floor. What's wrong? Aren't we going to use your room? Alice nodded, but at the same time seemed a little disappointed. So, about those Isaiah senbei. Her eyes were riveted on the fresh-baked snacks in Aoko's hands. When all was said and done, Alice's daily lesson ended up being postponed until after tea. For Aoko, who was still an apprentice, Alice was not just her roommate, but also her irreplaceable instructor. If she had decided Aoko needed to take a rest, there was nothing to do but obediently comply. The lesson lasted for 2 hours, after which they ate the dinners they had each prepared beforehand, then changed venues to regroup and pass time before bed. The sunroom was located in the east wing, next door to the parlor. With its commanding view of the beautiful garden outside, attention to detail, and high-class furniture, it was once the pride and joy of the Koonji mansion. However, the sunroom was located in the east wing, next door to the parlor. With its commanding view of the beautiful garden outside, attention to detail, and high-class furniture, it was once the pride and joy of the Koonji mansion. However, it's gonna be a jungle in the summer. Because the residents of this house had no interest in tending to the garden whatsoever, it had long since fallen into ruin. Hey Alice, don't you have a ploy that can tidy things up out there? Aoko had entered the sunroom first and was already pouring herself a cup of black tea. I'm sure I could find one if I looked, but it seems like such a hassle. Coolly deflecting her roommate's joke, Alice made for her own seat, but she caught sight of the box of chocolates on the table and furrowed her brow. What is it? I'm telling you today's failure was partly your fault. Enjoying those senbei beforehand got me too relaxed. I mean, sure, maybe using Gonder when I meant to use Wish was a little too much even for me, but 6 are missing. Huh? Are you talking about that? I guess Aoko was trying to use Gonder Shot. Or something relating to Gonder. Couldn't be... I mean, I guess Gonder can encompass various different spells. Aoko cast an inquisitive glance toward the box of chocolates. Their name was Song of Sixpence, and even if you scoured the entire earth, you wouldn't find these high-grade confections anywhere else. So, what about the mirror? Did you switch it from mansion mode to Misaki mode? Yes, it means neglecting things here, but I decided to focus on monitoring the city for now. It's been cloudy since yesterday. Little by little, we're definitely being surrounded. You mean their numbers have increased? I've located 2 more suspicious characters, aside from the first. That makes 1 in the city and 2 in the forest. Well, your scouting is as accurate as ever, so which is the bigger problem? The ones in the forest. Despite my best efforts, they know we're watching. They're going to be hard to draw out. I see. Then we'll make our move tonight? Tonight. It would be a major event, one that would completely transform her life. The closest analogy would be free-falling with a broken parachute. Whether or not she would be able to adapt and survive was entirely up to chance. Aoko swallowed her fear and trepidation in a gulp of tea. Ever since she had declared her intentions on the night of her school's anniversary, she had completely changed, physically and mentally. Alice accepted that strength with downcast eyes. As one possessed of the same goal, her roommate's mindset was reassuring. No, more than that, it was delightful. It had taken an entire year, but they were finally standing together on the same stage. To her, Aoko was a neighbor on the road of fate, an incompatible companion, an outsider that would never see eye to eye. Even if they would one day use everything they had inherited to kill each other, there was no meaning in it if they didn't become equals first. So it was right to be pleased with her growth. Sorry, but I can handle tonight alone. If you're so desperate for something to do, practice your suggestion sorcery some more. You'll need it for the park. Alice indifferently lectured Aoko without paying her so much as a glance. About the scale of tonight's enemy. About the plan for next time. About how in just 2 days she would be reborn anew. Okay already, I get it. Aoko finished her tea and stood up. I'll keep practicing, like you said. How did it go again? Lightly, weakly, ably, quickly, tick-tock, hurry, right? Aoko, it's lightly, weakly, ably, quickly, hurry, tick-tock. Please try to be more careful. The way you said it won't have a calming effect. Quite the opposite, in fact. Right, I'll keep that in mind. Smiling, she plucked up a chocolate and popped it into her mouth. Alice looked on in silence as Aoko bounded out of the sunroom with a wave. Then, after a brief pause, she snapped the box of chocolates shut as if to reprimand her roommate's thoughtless snacking. Man, those clouds moving, I cannot get over these effects. That's like, just every time. The way that everything moves in this visual novel just makes it feel like it's kind of alive. Oh shit. What the fuck just happened? Good morning. The time is now midnight. What the fuck is that? 24 hours since last update. Initiating backup, transmitting records. Commending rescan of local environment. Atmospheric condition report. Nitrogen clear, oxygen clear, argon clear, carbon dioxide clear. Fifth theoretical element. Anomaly. Localized discrepancy in space-time continuum confirmed. Encounter with Class 1 danger imminent. Switching perceptual domain from subjective to objective. Switching autonomy circuit to reserve power. Switching measurement circuit to main power. Switching camera from infrared to imagery number emission. Now! Preparing to commence hostiles. Lord, I beg of you, deliver my body from harm. What the fuck was that? Okay, so apparently the witches are using machines. Masaki City had many forests. Though urbanization was advancing in the city centers, the outskirts were still alive with nature. Even as trees with the wisdom of ages were felled. Even as the warm leaf mold was cleared away. Even as the songbirds' heads cocked in wonder disappeared. The mighty forests survived. They would continue to exist as realms of mystery until the light of civilization grew strong enough to violate their cultivated years. This was one of those very forests, as the neglected, undeveloped border between Masaki and Masaki Hills. It was a perfectly normal forest of no return, where the beasts driven from their homes by the city still eked out a meager existence. Hi diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. Winter had already arrived in this lonely place. Frigid winds sliced at the skin like razors and frost hung in the air. Anybody walking here would feel their cheeks stiffen and see their breath scatter into white fog. It was only 1 degree Celsius outside. The entire forest was in the grips of a bitter cold spell. Earth, trees, beasts, nothing was spared. The crow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed. Humans dared not set foot in these woods in the daytime, let alone at night. And now that it was winter, even the beasts that lived here were fast asleep in hibernation. The damp, misty air swallowed up the moonlight and concealed what dangers lay ahead. Any pitiable sacrifices that strayed off into this labyrinth would surely be lost forever. Everything was silent, save for the faint rustling of leaves in the wind and the quiet babbling of a nearby stream. There was no trace of life in this boundless darkness, whether it be beast or man. However, an incongruous black-clad figure walked through the night. The silhouette it cast was frail and slender, giving the impression of a boat lost on foggy seas. Light footsteps echoed vaguely through the woods. The figure, emerging from the veil of trees, was undoubtedly that of a young girl. To see such craft, and the dish ran away with the spoon. They came. They're here. Who is it? Who is it who's with it? Is it your stomach rumbling? Is it grumbling? It's grumbling. Which should we eat? Let's eat them both. You take the left, and you take the right. We'll welcome them properly, and give them a fright. After all, they're our long-awaited guests. And while we're on the topic, remember to savor the stomach and neck bones. The shadows of the trees broke out into eerie laughter. Was it a hallucination, an illusion, or possibly real? Whatever the case, they frolicked and danced in pace with the girl's steps. Come now, deeper. By the way, are the dice rigged? Load 'em with weights. File down the edges, just as long as we don't come up 6. The girl's brow wrinkled imperceptibly. Was she frightened by the voices that should not be heard, or the presence of beasts that should not exist? Surely not. Her pursed lips didn't show an ounce of fear. She was walking forward by her own will. If she had been scared, she wouldn't have been able to move at all. Suddenly, in the trees, she noticed 2 human figures observing her from the shadows. I saw them. They're here. Better give up. There's no escape. It's your own fault. You didn't run when you had the chance. The girl came to a stop, and the 2 whirling voices stopped with her. The babbling of the stream sounded like a crackling bonfire. And, on the other side of that shallow, ankle-deep stream, something that was neither of the city or of the forest emerged. Good evening. Is there somebody I can speak to? Her voice was calm and composed. In response, the 2 slit-mouthed men slowly edged forward step by step. I see. So you're a mere gravekeeper sent only to observe. It seems I was wrong. I could have let Aoko handle this. Oh, but... One of those slit-mouthed men suddenly fell forward as if he couldn't control himself any longer. That would be asking too much of her. Despite your appearances, you 2 seem to be full-fledged magi. Her clothes ruffled as she pulled something out. In her right hand was a glass cat, darker than the night. Their silence betrayed a slight weariness and incoherent fear. It was the first time they had ever shown emotion. Farewell, dear visitors. We'll be parting soon, so I'm afraid this is goodbye. Oh shit. What did she do? At those words, they clearly shuddered. To begin with, the slit-mouthed men had no ears, no mouths, no brains. They had no need for words. For them, the only thing that existed was right now. Fear and expectation were nothing more than an impossible future. Nevertheless, they felt a premonition. Right now, in this moment, they would be wiped out by a horrifying miracle. Well then, shall we play pretend, puppets? A bell-like song rang out through the white forest. The girl's voice blew away the cold, and... What the hell is that? Man, the waiting was unbearable! It's time for Little Red Riding Hood to take the stage! The curtain raised on Diddle Diddle, the banquet of the night. One of the slit-mouthed men attacked the girl in confusion. The other one fled back into the woods in terror. What the fuck is going on? The puppet that sprang at her, water splashing in his wake, was a monstrosity. That much she knew. Both of his arms were gruesome scissors, and his black heart was like a devil's. But any child that fell into his grasp would be effortlessly, mercilessly cut in half. Tweedle, leave it to us. It's finally our turn, so let's go! The flying piglets, in reality huge stuffed animals, weaved in and out between the trees as they bounced around like rubber balls. I thought those were like mechanical cows or something. Hey, it's Scissor Man, Clock Tower. But even when faced with such an uncanny sight, the slit-mouthed man did not waver. He raised both his arms into the air. However, what emerged from the sleeves of his long coat was not human limbs, but two barbaric 50-centimeter carving knives. With arms that had butchered countless prey in the past, he confronted the flitting piglets head-on, bisecting them in a single slash. His limbs froze. Their bodies split. Severed from head to tail, they looked like two enormous crocodile maws. With a clang, they clamped down on his arms. Everything up to his shoulders vanished, along with his freedom. Dread ran through him. In an instant, he understood. These things were not familiars made from piglets. They were monstrous staplers that merely masqueraded in that form. Dumb's got you! Dee's got you too! Oh, but it's too bad. Our master is silent, cruel, and totally indifferent. No matter who takes the credit, it's all the same to her. London Bridge is broken down, broken down, broken down. Get! Impossible. This was impossible. The slit-mouthed man complained to himself in a loop. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Talking piglets? That was fine. His arms being swallowed? That was fine too. Even the freakishly huge wave of magical energy that had washed over the forest was splendid, hateful though it was. None of those things merited surprise. True, they were rare familiars. True, the attack was bizarre, and true, the girl had a ridiculous amount of magical energy. But he had experienced all of those things before. In the first place, his own master was like that. However, what to do? How long will you last? These limbs of yours really are extravagant. Payment is annoying, but we'll take pounds if you can spare them. What were these things? They weren't empty vessels. They weren't living beings. They weren't even creatures animated by magic circuits. Though only his arms had been swallowed, his entire body was frozen. The phenomenon was utterly different from paralysis or weakening. It simply felt like there was no longer anywhere for him to go, as if he had become letters on a page. Of course, he was no stranger to the supernatural. Entrancement, charm, compulsion, freezing, waxing, and even petrification, the most powerful of mystic eyes. The puppet that had overcome countless grueling punishments ranging from drugs to sorcery screamed. This was different. This was something else altogether. The precept binding him now was a law unrelated to blood or muscle, oxygen or heat. It was an unknown restraint, to which rules and logic did not apply. Ah, just saying it was horrid. It was detached from everything in this world. London Bridge is broken down, broken down, broken down. London Bridge is broken down, my fair lady. Ugh! Jagged teeth gnawing at his shoulders. And for the first time since being born into this form, he felt rage. Standards must be absolute. However mysterious, however bizarre something may be, there were still laws. But these things shamelessly brushed that aside. To the slit-mouthed man, it was an attack on his very pride. Well then, after 3 days you'll be emaciated. After 6 days you'll be drowned. After half a year you'll be a pile of wretched bones. Regretfully, that sounds annoying, so we'll just kill you now. He howled. Though he had no mouth, he let out a cry of indignation and wrath. Oh? Oh? A device to attach your own arms, huh? How useful! You must be quite the warrior. The talking piglets fell into the stream. What had sounded like a furious scream had actually been the sound of twin explosives detonating in the slit-mouthed man's shoulders. Now armless, he rushed toward the girl. Useless idiots. Remind me to punish you later. Though he had lost his primary weapon, he still had his trump card. A mystic eye that struck directly at its target's heart. A specialized magic circuit that induced myocardial infarction. It was an extraordinarily simple attack, but that was exactly why it was so deadly. If it was fired at this point-blank range, it would be like an unavoidable shotgun blast of death. Useless. But, sadly, he was a creature of sight. Build it up with wood and clay, wood and clay, wood and clay, build it up with wood and clay, my fair lady. To the bitter end, he never noticed that the girl's rhyme had changed. The hell did he just get crushed by a tree? To the giant, this earth-shaking blow was no different than swatting a fly. Its verdant veins ripped with strength. Its ancient oaken bark was thick enough to repel even the mightiest chainsaw, and on its forehead the word Emeth was scribed in multicolored paint. Though judging from the misspelling, it was only there for appearances and served no real purpose. So he was killed by a giant. Oh god. The giant's identity was none other than the mighty Thames Troll, also known as Falling Down and the Great Bridge. Lauded under many names, this form was the first of 4 miracles. Now the other one, Thames. The giant responded to the girl's words. Of course, it didn't move. Its deeply rooted legs made that impossible. But it didn't need to. It merely lifted its left arm toward the heavens and... Well, damn. Shut down. The slit-mouthed man that ran away had been fleeing non-stop into the dark forest ever since the battle began. He was to reach safety and transit the information he had recorded. Those were his orders. All that mattered was escaping from this familiar forest at any cost. It was their last resort in case of emergency. One would stay behind to engage the enemy. The other would retreat and report to their master. He dashed through the trees. Despite being gripped by fear, he was confident in his victory. After all, his every function had been specialized for one thing, and one thing only: escape. Nothing in this forest could match him. Even the savage wolves would doubtless be left in his wake. He kicked off the ground with bird-like legs. Perhaps it was due to some bias of his creator that transformed into that shape whenever he devoted himself to running. His top speed was 70 kilometers per hour, far exceeding the normal limits of 2-legged beings. Several kilometers out, surely this was far enough. He stopped to confirm his surroundings. Nobody was pursuing him. His crescent mouth, or eye rather, slackened in relief. But then... he turned around and saw his death. London Bridge is broken down, broken down, broken down. The rhymes of Mother Goose echoed somewhere far off in the distance. At the same time, a seemingly infinite number of vines sprouted from the earth and converged in midair, forming what looked to be the arch of a bridge, or perhaps a giant's arm. Aw, shit. Well, he's screwed. London Bridge is broken down, my fair lady. Ooh, that's a way to die. Final report. Survival, impossible. Analysis, impossible. Transmission, impossible. Report concluded. Ah, Lord, I beg of you, deliver this body. I guess those two things were machines, or robots of some sort, hired by their work for the church. It's over. Good job, Thames. You can come back now. Hopefully next time I'll be able to call you out to a more fitting stage. Spinning around on her heel, the girl began to walk. The invaders that set out their workshops in this forest had been eliminated. She didn't particularly care what their motivations were, or how many victims they had claimed. In the first place, the shackles of human society didn't apply to her. That was what it meant to be a pure-blooded witch. That was what it meant to be a mainster. Hey, what about us? What about us? We can't spit these arms out on our own. We can't spit these arms out on our own. We can't move when we're chewing on something. Are you saying a pig that can't fly is useless? We'll be more helpful next time, we swear, even though we always fail. That's right, we want to be praised at least once before we break. She sighed and walked over to the stream, taking off her long black glove and dipped her slender fingers into the frigid water. You say not to roll a 6, but you never come up anything else. Her gloomy muttering was met with silence. The boisterous piglets were gone. In their place, she cradled 2 black dice in her palm. She was about to address the scattered wreckage, but brought her hand to her mouth instead. Nothing left to do here. I wonder if I should have at least tried to find out who made them. Well, that probably would have been a good idea. Her delicate white fingers lightly, almost sorrowfully, brushed her lips. Whoever made them, I'm sure, is probably going to be one of the main villains of this visual novel. After sighing a second time, she slowly left the dark forest the same way she had come. And I believe we're probably going back to Sojiro's perspective now. Now, with that small digression finished, let us pause for a moment and jump back to a Saturday morning early in December. Third period was over, and only the end-of-day homeroom remained. However, because their homeroom teacher Yamashiro Kazuki was missing in action, the Class 2C students Shizuki Sojiro and Kinomi Hosuke, languishing in a state of wanting to go home but being unable to, had taken to watching the school grounds from the balcony. The rest of their classmates were engaged in idle conversation inside the classroom. Beside them was Class A's Tsukiji Tobimaru, their companion in killing time. They were all leaning listlessly against the railing, talking about their plans for the weekend. So, Hosuke, are you going to be working? You moron, who the hell works 7 days a week? I'm going out with the girls from Class B tomorrow. Or at least, that was the plan, but it looks like it fell through. In other words, you got rejected again. Yeah, a direct attack. You really don't mince words, do you? Please, even a baby chick would learn the word rejection if it had to see your stupid mug every day. You can go around self-destructing all you like, but leave Soji out of it, okay? Oh, you're the bad influence here. Better watch out for this guy, Sojiro. He's seriously evil. You know how you have to separate trash when you throw it away? That's what the inside of his head is like. As far as he's concerned, there's only 2 types of people in the world. The ones he can use and the ones he can't. Oh yeah? I've heard about that. This is a bit out of the blue, but what do you think about Hosuke, Tobimaru? Let's see, yeah. You know how recently they've been saying that pretty soon you'll have to pay to get oversized trash collected? And that the era of free garbage collection is coming to an end? It's because of people like him. Huh? What on earth are you babbling about? You can make a pretty penny off a worn-out chest of drawers, you know. I'm telling you, instant use is gonna be the trend from here on out. Aren't those disposable cameras they sell at convenience stores really popular these days? The world is finally catching up to me. Anyway, I guess Hosuke is working. What about you, Tobimaru? It's coming! The era of Kinomi Hosuke is coming! I've got some personal business to attend to. The old man has clients coming over, so it's my job to entertain them and show them around town. Hey, listen to me! Listen when people are talking! Anyway, I'm just gonna be looking after my little sister, that's all. There's no way in hell I'm gonna help you out in that shitty Chinese restaurant next door. How about you, Soji? Are you working tomorrow? No, I'm free, though I will be working at the amusement park today. Whoa, you mean Kitsyland? That place is dangerous. You've definitely got a pair on you. I heard even the guys in the judo club couldn't hack it there. No way. You mean it's even harder than carrying Neko Kuro's bags? Well, I wouldn't go that far. Anyway, the teacher's running late as hell, huh? Look, even Class B next door has gone home already. Seriously, it sucks, but we might have to go find him ourselves. We can't let Sojiro here be late for work. Tobimaro warily pushed himself up from the railing when suddenly, as if it had been waiting for that very moment, a chime rang out over the school PA system. Class 2C's Shizuki Sojiro, please report to the faculty room immediately. Mr. Yamashiro would like to speak to you. I repeat, Class 2C's... There was an uncomfortable silence. Then, after 5 long seconds, Sojiro said goodbye and left the balcony. Man, nothing interesting ever happens here. I wish somebody would, I don't know, make a crop circle in the schoolyard or something like that, you know? Hosuke grumbled as he slumped his body over the railing. Don't rely so much on other people. If you want excitement so badly, then stir something up yourself. You could try bumping into Aoko like you did when class assignments were announced. That'd heat things up real quick. That old trauma? Come on, man, starting a fight with the prez isn't interesting. It's crazy. I'm a decent law-abiding student, you know? Just having a hot transfer student show up one day would be nice enough. Meh. Well, a normal girl would still be kinda boring, but maybe if she was a Hollywood producer or a famous singer from England or something. Weak. If you're going to daydream, at least make it a princess from Mars or something. Also, Mr. Yamashiro has a message for all Class 2C students. Because he is unable to attend today's homeroom, please go home on your own. That will be all. Well, how about that? Mr. Yamashiro has been pretty irresponsible ever since he brought that new Yogo of his, don't you think? I wonder what sort of sound a 10-yen coin would make against it. That's going too far. Just put some gum in the keyhole. Teachers have pretty pitiful salaries, you know. The 2 old friends walked back to the classroom, grumbling all the while. They weren't worried about their comrade in the faculty room at all. Uh-oh, is he having to talk to Aoko again? Yep, I knew it. I'm not convinced. Students are allowed to hold part-time jobs. The school regulations even state that as long as the workplace is approved, it's actually encouraged as a way of gaining social experience. Well, yes, but in this case the problem is that he's obviously overdoing it. And if he took a job that isn't in accordance with the labor standards law, he wouldn't be the only one in trouble. The school would be liable as well. Sparks flew between the merciless student council president and the easygoing modern Japanese teacher, and a dangerous aura filled the room. The other faculty hurried off to the conference room to save their own skins. Before Mr. Yamashiro knew it, he was all alone with Aozaki Aoko. Did they all run away? That's so mean. They're always pushing the scary stuff onto me. Don't try to change the subject. Now, for argument's sake, let's say he's working at an unapproved job. Wouldn't that just be because the school isn't sufficiently accommodating his needs? I'm not telling you to pay his rent or anything, but you should at least consider his desire to work as much as he can. And if you're really worried about unapproved jobs, start by changing the rule that says each student can only have one. He hung his head at her quiet admonition and wondered what he had gotten himself into. This was supposed to have been an open and shut case. He had planned to call in the student rumored to be working multiple part-time jobs, find out if that was true, and if it was, offer a warning and some counseling before heading off to lunch, satisfied that all was right with the world. However, somehow, Aoko, who had come by the faculty room completely by chance, caught wind of it, and before he knew it, things had ended up like this. Of course, he actually agreed with her point of view, since he was well aware of the student in question's circumstances. But no matter how much he wanted to help, he was just a newcomer to the faculty. If he didn't stay on the vice principal's good side, he could lose his job, and his meager salary right along with it. Sorry, but my hands are tied on this one. Vice principal's orders. In that case, how about a compromise? Yes? She pulled a single sheet of paper out of her bag. A sheet of paper which had been the source of countless headaches at that morning's faculty meeting. Aoko, that's... Exactly. The Ada Church volunteer participation form. As usual, the number of applicants this month is 0. There's no way a devout Christian like the vice principal could possibly take offense to this, right? Why, if I'm not mistaken, he was complaining about the lack of faith within the student body just this morning. It's kind of weird to imagine a Christian Japanese person. That's not really a very popular religion in that area. I don't really think it is, but I could be wrong. You're not wrong, though I'd really like to know why you're so well informed about a private meeting between teachers. He scratched his head, but his eyes were smiling, because he saw what she was getting at. Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, huh? Even though it's volunteering, there's still payment due to it being school-endorsed social observation. On top of that, not only will the vice principal be pleased, but in the event that said volunteer already had a part-time job, that means he would have officially gotten permission from the school to work 2 at once. Considering it's unprecedented, I think it's a pretty good compromise. He raised his hands in surrender. Plenty of students came to him with complaints, but few, if any, brought the perfect solution with them too. The reason people relied on this schoolgirl despite being terrified of her was probably due to this natural tendency of hers to take care of others. Alright, I'll try attacking from that direction. Say a prayer for me that everything goes well, okay? I hate relying on others. If you're going to participate in this scheme, play your part properly. She stood up, bowed, and turned to leave. Wait, don't go yet. I'm going to call in Sojiro now. I'll need you to look after him. Uh-oh. Huh? Her eyes narrowed in a glare. Just now, she could have sworn she heard something utterly incomprehensible. I was just thinking, 2 volunteers is better than 1, right? And it would really put my mind at ease if you were there as an escort. Hey, wait a minute. Too late. Hello, broadcasting room, could you call Shizuki Sojiro from Class 2C into the faculty room for me? It's urgent, thank you. Seriously? Wait. This is perfect. To think all my problems would get solved at once, it's my lucky day. But Aoko, you're being unusually helpful, aren't you? Could it be that guy is actually your type? Hey, broadcasting room, as long as I've got you on the line, let me add something else to the announcement. Say that the student council president is waiting here eagerly. Mr. Yamashiro. Damn. Well, Mr. Yamashiro isn't coming back for a while. He's on paid vacation because of his injury. The next day, a pleasant Sunday morning, Sojiro woke up 2 hours before the arranged meeting time. Afterward, he went for a jog to steady his nerves, and though he had intended to run within 30 minutes, he ended up getting lost in thought. Before he knew it, almost an hour had passed, and he rushed back to his department in a panic. He racked his brain, agonizing over what to wear, but in the end decided to just go with his school uniform. Really? You're gonna wear your school uniform? Meet me at the east entrance of Misaki Central Park at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Yesterday in the faculty room. Aozaki Aoko said with a face that looked like she was doing her best to ignore a headache. Was she coming down with something? I hope she feels better soon. Apparently misunderstanding something fundamental. Yeah, you pretty much are. He muttered misplaced words of worry. At any rate, he ended up waiting for about 5 minutes. Aoko showed up at 10 o'clock sharp. Morning. You're as punctual as ever, huh? What the hell's that supposed to mean? What's with that face? You're not sick, are you? No, I'm pretty sure I'm fine. He brushed away her worries. I was just surprised to see you wearing your school uniform. Well, of course I am. This is for school, isn't it? He slumped his shoulders. The 2 hours he had spent fretting over his clothes had been ruthlessly spoiled, just like that. Well, I guess we're on a date now. They were walking near the station. Though at first, Aoko had been taking the time to properly show Sojiro around town, now she was only offering the bare minimum of explanation. It was partly because he was surprisingly well informed already, but also... Oh, the food here is really good. When you're in a hurry, this is a useful shortcut. If you ever want to buy a bicycle, that specialty shop there is better than the department store by the station. She suddenly realized what they must have looked like to a third-party observer. Anyway, can we talk about the job for a minute? I've been meaning to ask you exactly what kind of work it's going to be. If you volunteer at the church, the school will overlook your multiple part-time jobs. He had agreed almost immediately, but it seemed that true to form, he hadn't even considered what the job would entail before he accepted it. Well, I figured that might be the case. Is this your first time going to the Ada church? It's actually the second time. I've been there once before because I thought it was an unusual building and I wanted to see what it was. The person inside gave me some free candy. You want some candy? You want to come down to the cellar? Have some of my candy? That's where I keep all the children. He seriously contemplated what sort of organization it could be. With his downcast eyes and thoughtful gaze, he was the very image of a philosopher. However, when all was said and done, I wonder if they make you pay from the second time on. He was just worried about something like that. Normally, that's something they only do for children, you know. She sighed. He must have seemed like a lost lamb showing up on their doorstep. So, who was it you met, the priest or the sister? It was a beautiful woman. Ah, that would be the sister Yoru. I'd tell you to thank her when you meet her today, but I guess there's no need, since it's you after all. And I would kind of take offense to that. Anyway, the work should be simple enough, since it's the same as what you've been doing at school. It's surprisingly understaffed, considering how big it is. You go to the church and find out Kodamine is working there. She quickened her pace as they approached the church, like a ferocious general storming into enemy territory. It made Sojiro a little uneasy. I would think most of what she does would make someone uneasy. The Ada Church had a long and storied history. It was a pure white sanctuary standing on the threshold between the business and residential districts, far from the hustle and bustle of the station. As far as Aoko knew, it had been remodeled into its current form roughly 8 years ago, and was now more than large enough to accommodate this rural town. Incidentally, it was also right next door to the largest general hospital in Misaki City. If you asked her, shrewdly setting up shop next to the place with the highest death toll in town was incredibly shady, though only the ones who knew she felt that way were Alice and the church's priest. Do you have some sort of connection to this church, Aoko? Me? Not at all. In fact, I wish I could go back in time and erase every association I've ever had with them. Unfortunately, though, they have deep ties with my father and grandfather. When I was in elementary school, I had to come here and help out every day. It was so annoying. Sounds kind of like Ren's relationship with, the church in Fate Stay Night, or with Kodamine. The more she talked, the more vicious her expression became. She was exuding a magnificently high-spirited aura. It felt like if she met her so-called trauma on the street, she'd walk right up to it, grab it by the collar, do a one-armed shoulder throw, and drive its skull into the ground, then finish it off by stomping on its defenseless, crumpled body. Yeah, I can imagine her doing that. The Soon is strong with this one. Just when her bad mood was starting to make Sojiro fear for his safety, a young woman in a nun's habit emerged from the front entrance, perhaps drawn out by the rustling of the crows that had started flocking in the sky above. Excuse me, but is somebody there? I'm afraid this church doesn't do business with criminals and thugs, so I must respectfully ask you to take your leave. Though if you truly desire to repent and change your ways, our doors are always open. It's Aozaki Aoko, Sister Yuika. Oh my, Aoko. That's surprising. It's been a long time since you came here in the daytime. You're right. Usually I only get called here at night to talk with the priest. You and I... Huh, I guess we haven't had a proper conversation in almost a year. Not that I expect that to change anytime soon. Yes, you've matured quite a bit as well. It's disappointing. Your presence just now was so merciless I barely recognized you. Look at Sojiro's expression. He's like not even sure what to make of this. Just has that like cross-eyed expression on him, like, what's going on? On the surface, it was a harmonious exchange of greetings. Does not look that way. Sojiro was totally oblivious to the tense atmosphere between them. From his point of view, they seemed to be getting along fabulously. God damn it, Sojiro is so fucking stupid. This guy here and I are your volunteers this month. For the sake of your beloved Aida Church, we kindly offered to work from 11 to 3 and not a minute longer. Oh, Aoko is engaging in charity. The world must be coming to an end. But the house of the Lord is open to all, so I suppose I'll overlook your attitude from now on and welcome you warmly. Her smile was elegant and cool. Still, setting everything else aside, it seemed she was genuinely pleased to have some extra hands helping out around the church. Well, church is definitely bigger than Kodamine Church. The sister introduced herself as Susei Yuika and thanked Sojiro for volunteering. He was curious as to why she never opened her eyes, but since Aoko was there and he didn't want to accidentally say something rude, he refrained from asking about it. Mr. Shizuki? What a calm name. It matches your voice perfectly. Huh? Oh, thank you, I guess. The sister's face darkened slightly at his unenthusiastic response. My apologies. It appears you dislike being called by your family name. Then would you prefer if I simply called you Sojiro? Oh, no. Either way is fine, really. If you say so. Honestly, how troublesome. Though her tone was gentle, her words were somehow cold. She led the way with closed eyes and sure-footed confidence. Now, about the work you'll be doing. You don't need to tell me. It's almost Christmas, so you want to get the tedious cleaning out of the way, right? No problem. That's our specialty. Though that really only applied to Sojiro. In that case, Aoko, you go to the kitchen and start preparing communion wafers. Mr. Shizuki, you'll be working outside. I need you to clean all the places I can't reach myself. Hey, wait a minute, won't Ritsuka be in the kitchen? I'll pass, thanks. Ritsuka is out today, so please, feel at ease. Aoko waved her hand and walked to a door leading deeper into the chapel. It seemed she really was familiar with this church, just like she had said. This way, Mr. Shizuki. First, we need to get the cleaning supplies from the storeroom. Well, sounds like a shitty job. Clean the church. The work with which Sojiro had been entrusted was perfectly normal window cleaning, the epitome of unskilled labor. So, I just need to wipe down all the windows? Yes, first use a damp cloth, then a dry cloth, then finish with the cleaning solution. Is the ladder tall enough? Huh? It looks a little short. Then just clean the places you can reach. I'll be heading back now. After that brief exchange, the sister returned to the church. Did she trust him that much, or did she simply have a curt personality by nature? I'm gonna assume the latter. He couldn't say from just one meeting. To begin with, he didn't have that sort of investigative talent. Thankfully, though, he wasn't the type to get depressed just because he was left alone, and quickly got to work. Once again, the weather was half-hearted and disappointing. It didn't look like it was going to rain, but it wasn't sunny either. He sat on top of the ladder, tranquilly washing windows 5 meters above ground. This sort of manual labor didn't bother him. In fact, if there had been a clear blue sky overhead, he probably would have considered it a perfect holiday. As he finished off the third window, then the fourth, he fell into a comfortable rhythm. He even started to whistle a little. Being so high up was unnerving, sure, but at the same time, the view was amazing. If he turned his gaze toward the town, he could see the tree-covered hill that had been on his mind ever since he moved here. So there really is a house in the woods after all. The hill at the outskirts of Misaki and the forest looking down over the town that never slept. From here, they looked like a fortress from the same foreign land. Hey, what are you doing up there, Mr. Burglar? Suddenly, he was pulled out of his reverie by a voice from below. When he glanced down, he saw a kind yet sloppy-looking woman approaching at a trot. Ah, but he has an easygoing feel to him that doesn't suit a master thief, like a bearded saint that forces unneeded toys on people after popping out of their fireplace. Urgh, just thinking about it creeps me out. That's totally trespassing, right? She looked to be in her late 20s. Despite the cold, she wasn't wearing a jacket, nor was she carrying a purse. Though it was something Sojiro had no way of knowing yet, adult women and purses were usually inseparable. The fact that she didn't care about any of that was a testament to her free spirit. Then again, maybe she just had a few screws loose. Again, I'm assuming the latter. Wait, now I remember! You're that part-timer from Misaki High, right? Wow, high school students these days are even better than professional contractors. She looked up and voiced her admiration. Okay, I'll help too. Are there many more ladders? Rags? No? Oh, well I'll just use a hose then. I know it's wrong, but at least it should be fun, right? She laughed like she was seriously enjoying herself. Her smile was glowing like a walking cactus. In short, she was a nuisance. True to his impression, she didn't even wait for his response. She just jumped right in and started cleaning. Well then. Well, at least I guess you'll get the work done faster. So I was walking by when I saw something that looked like a person clinging to the front of the church. I thought it was pretty bold of a thief to work in broad daylight, so of course I wanted to get a closer look. Imagine my surprise when it turned out to be a cute kid earnestly washing windows like a pro. It was sort of cool. Wouldn't anybody want to help out if they saw something like that? She rambled on merrily as she cleaned the next window over. Everything about her was suspicious, but Sojiro nodded along politely. He must have instinctively understood. This woman was always having this kind of menial work pushed off onto her, just like him. Do you work at this church? Me? Oh no, I'm just a simple passerby. More importantly, why are you being so reserved? We've already met a bunch of times in the shopping district. We have? Of course. You're the kid that works part-time at Otatsu, right? I've eaten there several times this week alone. I'm, Hanasawa. Yeah, what's your name? A frank grin had spread over her face when she glanced down at the flower bed just now. Sojiro replied with his usual awkward self-introduction. Sojiro, huh? That's a nice name. Very traditional, unlike the people here at this church. Seriously, don't you think that Eri and Yuika both seem sort of foreign? I don't know about Eri, but Sister Yuika was a dark-haired beauty. You mean you haven't met the priest yet? Even though the Ada Church is known for its handsome priest and 2 stunning sisters? Oh wait, you just moved here recently, didn't you? And on top of that, you're living all alone. That's right, but you're really amazing, you know that? All of your guesses so far have been scarily accurate. I'm not guessing, I'm reasoning. A kid who works as hard as you isn't doing it for fun. If you just wanted money to play around with, a single job would be more than enough. Plus, you don't seem like the greedy type. In which case, it's safe to say you're doing it to cover your living expenses, right? Though if you ask me, a student paying for his own living expenses and tuition isn't exactly healthy. Sorry, but I disagree. Only those who work get to eat. Is that so? You're pretty mature for your age, saying things like that. Well, I worked non-stop when I was a student too, so I can sort of understand your situation. Really? You lived alone too? Yeah, I rebelled against my parents and studied abroad in another country. Since I had friends there already, I didn't have to worry about finding a place to stay, but I still had to scrounge up the money to pay for all my own food. Of course, you can probably tell that I'm the type that doesn't mind working with my hands, so both school and work are fond memories for me. Once again, he found himself nodding along with her words. This time, though, it was out of an irrepressible feeling of camaraderie welling up deep from within him. Ha ha ha! Maybe it was fate meeting like this. I'll be expecting you to take extra special care of me when I see you at Otatsu from now on, and if there's ever anything you want to ask me about, go right ahead. I can't promise a reliable answer, but at the very least I can give you spiritual support. Yeah, that doesn't really mean shit. That's very kind of you, thanks. Then, it's a bit sudden, but what exactly does this place do? He gestured toward the church. Huh? Naturally, she was taken aback. She had no idea that Sojiro was a relic from the country, and her natural cleverness led her to misunderstand his honest question as high-level sarcasm. That's a good question. I guess in the end, what they offer is security for the spirit, though maybe security isn't the right word. It's more like armor? A patchwork barricade? At any rate, the people themselves aren't improved at all. Oh, and they also give out bread and wine. For free? Of course, it's donated by rich people anyway, so it's not like it costs them anything. Which reminds me, I almost forgot the most important part. None of their income is taxed. Salvation is a tricky business, and if you're able to exploit it properly, it's no risk high return. Huh. I don't really understand, but it's a place you can come when you're in trouble, right? You could, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's probably best just to come once a month or so for temporary peace of mind. Squeaky sounds of cleaning filled the air. The two people with a shared interest polished window after window, whistling while they worked. Hey, I've got another question. That forest over there, what is it? Forest? You mean the forest on that mountain? No, I mean the forest on that hill. Apparently, his pride as a person from the country couldn't tolerate calling something so small a mountain. Huh, I thought it was pretty hard to climb though, but I guess you're right. A self-deprecating shadow fell over her face. Sojiro noticed only too late that when her usual graceful smile faltered, it was replaced with an utterly different expression full of cruel intimidation. Of course. It's a hill, but see? There's something sticking out of the trees. It almost looks like a chimney. He wasn't going to let that slow him down. That's exactly what it is. Believe it or not, there's a giant estate right in the middle of the forest, but since the entire area is private property, nobody's ever been inside. Everybody calls it the Koonji Haunted House. It's probably best to keep your distance. Even though it's such a small forest, there are countless stories of bad things happening there. People getting lost, wild dogs attacking, things like that. Wild dogs? There are wild dogs in the city too? There's a ton of them. You can even find them in the back lot behind this church. The priest here is always tossing them bread, so it's turned into a part of their patrol route. Anyway, discretion is the better part of valor. Staying out of the forest is one of the rules of this city. It's still private property after all. So if you go in, you're just gonna get the cops called on you and end up having to sit through a long lecture in a police box. Not a fun time, right? He gazed at the distant chimney from atop the ladder. The reason he had been interested in the hill in the first place was because it reminded him slightly, ever so slightly, of the forest where he grew up. But it seemed like it had nothing to do with him at all. Content with that knowledge, he turned his attention back to the task at hand. Thanks to Hanasawa's cooperation, the window cleaning went off without a hitch. With two people pitching in, they were able to wrap up the simple yet labor-intensive work in record time. Nice job! You can barely tell that they're the same grime-covered windows from before. Hey, why don't we get some tea after this? It'll be my treat. Yes, were you saying something, Hanaso? Sorry, but I just remembered I have some urgent business. Got a jet now. Ciao! He turned around from putting up the ladder just in time to see her escaping to the street at lightning speed. It was almost 3 o'clock. Over 3 hours had passed since she had offered to help out. He complacently watched her go. Even though she had only stopped by on a whim, she stayed and helped for such a long time. She had probably just remembered somewhere else she could make herself useful. Hey, Sojiro, are you out here? Aoko suddenly appeared from around the corner. Sorry to interrupt. Don't mind me. Just keep... She trailed off, seemingly mystified by the sight of him trying to put away a ladder taller than himself. After a second, she rolled up her sleeves and walked over. That surprised him even more than her sudden appearance. She stood next to him and briskly motioned at the ladder. Here, lay it on its side. I'll take the bottom, you take the top. She spoke so naturally that he found himself putting the ladder down before he even had a chance to complain that he could handle it himself. Well, I guess Aoko isn't bitchy all the time. They received their reward from the sister for a job well done and left the church. Aoko had errands to run near the station, so for the time being they were heading in the same direction. You're pretty good when it comes to work, huh? Aoko suddenly spoke up under the pre-evening sky. Rather than starting a conversation, it seems she was simply thinking out loud. Really? I'm glad you think so. Sojiro smiled frankly. Though he had been looking pretty pleased with himself ever since he got paid, so it was hard to say if her words had actually affected him that much. Hey now, don't get carried away. Normally you're nothing but a headache. This isn't nearly enough to make up for all the trouble you caused me. Please don't talk about school, I'll cry. He hung his head. Part-time jobs were one thing, but the classes at school were another matter altogether. Even disregarding the exams, they weren't something he could catch up to in a short amount of time. Do you hate people with bad grades, Aoko? Well, dealing with people who are slow on the uptake is tiring, but more importantly, you're not supposed to be my problem in the first place. It's the teacher's job to help students who are falling behind, and it's your job to respond to their efforts. Working part-time is fine, but you have to make sure to properly prepare for your lessons when you get home, too. That goes without saying. Everybody at the school is nice. Well, alright, but everybody's nice? She tilted her head. Why had he said something like that at a time like this? Was it just his way of expressing his gratitude? By the way, this is just for future reference, but what kind of jobs are you working? If you mean where, most of them are in the shopping district. You know, the fish shop, the flower shop, places like that. Oh, but yesterday I went all the way to the next town over for a job in the amusement park. The jobs approved by the school were limited to the Misaki shopping district, so his answer was pretty much what she had expected. Except that is for the very last part. Amusement park? You mean the one in Ishirogi? Yeah, they had me disassembling and disposing of rundown attractions. It was really exhausting. I'd imagine so. Once again, she was impressed. Hauling around the sort of machines used in an amusement park wasn't exactly a job for students to do in their spare time. Still, I'm a little jealous. I never had the chance to visit Kitschyland myself, even though I grew up here. She looked in the direction of the neighboring town. From here, she could just barely make out the giant Ferris wheel. Its circular steel frame, illuminated by the setting sun, reminded her of a crumbling gravestone. Really? Did you not have enough money? She stifled a laugh with her hand. It was rude, but she couldn't help it. No, it wasn't anything like that. It's just that after the park opened, I was always too busy. If it was a problem that could be solved by money, we could go right now, see? She showed off the envelope holding the earnings from their part-time work at the church. It was a cheerful gesture, yet Sojiro's face darkened when he saw it. Fine, in that case, let's go next time. You know, I'd like that. Unfortunately, it's impossible. I guess you didn't notice because you're you, but that place isn't open anymore. It shut down for good over 2 years ago. What? Looking back on it, he did think it was a little strange that he hadn't seen any customers the entire time he was working. Aoko must have been enjoying herself. Normally, this was the part where she would yell at him for making her explain something that should have been obvious, but it seemed that tonight, for some reason, she actually found it amusing. After they said their goodbyes, Sojiro went home and immersed himself in preparations for tomorrow's classes. Before he knew it, it was already time for work again. There were countless differences between the mountains and the city, but the usage of time was the biggest. Outside of his apartment, everything had moved so quickly. He put away the reference books he still couldn't understand and went out into the night. Oh, that's right. I guess he forgot about the hash-slinging slasher. Midnight passed, and the night grew ever deeper. He pulled up his collar to stave off the cold winter air as he walked home. It was eerily quiet. There were no dogs scrounging for food, or people running errands. Even the nearby convenience store had closed at 11 o'clock. Exhausted, he took a conspicuously deep breath. The townscape built up from man-made objects was deserted. The pale fluorescent lights shined brighter than the stars. Though he wasn't consciously aware of it, it was making him incredibly uneasy. Pathetic. Isn't it normal for the night to be so scary? He talked tough despite being hunched over and shivering in the cold. Stay out of the darkness, but don't go into deserted places. He didn't know if there was a reason for it, or if there was just something about his face. All the people he'd met so far kept giving him the same advice. Still, even if they say that, no matter how much he was told to avoid the dark, he couldn't take it seriously. Light was everywhere here, and it wasn't just the main roads either. Even the residential district, far removed from the clamor of the station, was drenched in the soft glow of electricity. There was fear, but the quality of that fear was different from the mountains. Probably because the underlying rules were different. The system of retribution here was made to favor one side over the other. If anything was scary, it was the fact that he still didn't understand those rules very well. In the mountains, those who broke the rules were punished on the spot, accidentally wandering onto an animal trail, for instance, and getting mauled by the animals that lived there. To him, that was what it meant to make a mistake. Punishment was not something meted out by people, but a natural consequence of breaking the rule itself. But in the city, things were not so clear-cut. There was no way to know what was right and what was wrong until it was too late. Still, it's basically the same, probably. The retribution was simply delayed, that's all. To illustrate further, in his hometown there was nobody entrusted with maintaining the security of the village. Here, however, in exchange for being an easy place for humans to live, there were people employed to punish those who broke the rules. Unlike in the mountains where crime and punishment were synonymous, in the city they were two separate things. Places you must not enter, things you must not see. One wrong step and somebody would appear to punish you. That was how society worked. Therefore, the best way to live safely was to avoid meddling in the affairs of others. That must have been what all the people worried about him meant when they said he should try to keep to himself. Whoops, I almost took a shortcut again. No matter how much of an inconvenience it was, he couldn't just hop the fences around people's houses to get to his apartment on the other side. Nope, that would kind of be trespassing, Sojiro. If by chance those people were awake, he would be reported to the police and nobody would be able to help him. But I'm just from the country, I don't understand. Burdened with this distorted view of the city, Shizuki Sojiro quietly made it to the end of another day. Unable to fall asleep, he gazed out at the sky from his bed. It had been the first thing to truly unsettle him after he came here, to the convenience of almost every problem being solved with the flip of a switch, the novelty of a total stranger living on the other side of a single wall. All of it had been blown away the moment he looked up. No way, that's the sky? He still remembered the words that had slipped out of his mouth. Everything was so faint and so small. Could he really survive in a place where the stars didn't even shine at night? The anxiety that had seized him then still plagued him even now. He shut his eyes. Though his mind was filled with fretful worries, his body was exhausted from work and study, and he soon fell fast asleep.